Okay, so the left-hand one was your before setup.
Yeah.
As we said, you were kind of in that kind of classic sort of capital Y setup. If anything, the hands were probably nearer your back leg,
Yeah.
So the hand almost behind the ball, almost in like a bit of a scooping kind of action to try and get the ball up in the air. It caused some issues there with how your hands are on the golf club. We can't see much of your logo on that glove there. The hand's not far enough round there, okay? So that was your setup before. This one here now, we didn't quite get your feet together, but starting with your feet together, getting that club to lean forward a smidgen. Like I say, it wants to be sort of pointing towards your left shoulder there. So you're not far away there. And in time when you see you sort of get the club down now with your feet, you sort of get yourself comfortable there. Now, if I clear that line, you can see your hands now are near your front leg.
Yeah.
So you've got that right now. And that's something you can just keep practicing over and over again to the point where it's what I do. It's second nature. There's no thought process about doing that, okay? In terms of the movement, like we said in the golf swing, the issue you had now on the way back, your head would move an awful long way off the golf ball, up to sort of 10 o'clock moving over here, yeah? So your hips have moved off the ball, this foot's moving, you moved a long way away from the ball, which then to hit the golf ball, you had to move a long way back to the golf ball. Now in time, sometimes you did a reasonable job of that, but it was inconsistent, yeah? 6 out of 7 shots would be really good. 3 or 4 would be not quite so good. And then, of course, if you change clubs, that inconsistency is not going to come even close to that, okay? I mean, you'll be probably like 2 out of 10 will be good rather than 7 out of 10. The fact you've got the same club repeating it from a perfectly flat line, there's a lot less variables. You go on the golf course, different at the clubs, different slopes, and also the time delay between shots. A game of golf, well, not too long, 4 hours, but near enough 4 hours. You play full 18 holes of golf, and you're in 120 shots in 4 hours, yeah? Roughly speaking, should we say. 35, 40 a putts, right, which don't take as much time.
Yeah.
So you've got 80 shots in, say, 3.5 hours, yeah? You go to a driving range, 80 shots, you're hitting them in about 25 minutes, aren't you? Yes, it's bang, 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 bang. You get in a groove and a rhythm, yeah? On a golf course, you might hit your driver on the first hole, and then you might on the third hole, 20 minutes later. You hit a 7 on the second, and then a 7 on the sixth, 45 minutes later.
Yeah.
So there's no sort of consistency in the game itself. So if your swing is reliant on a lot of movement and timing, it's tough to be consistent, okay? Now, as we said, when you're hitting the golf ball, focus on the golf ball. In an ideal world, we want that hip to be sort of moving around that way. So this hip's going to move a bit more, as we say, towards target while your head is staying a bit more stable, okay? Now, when you're hitting the golf ball, like I said, I want you to swing the golf club as natural as possible. Natural will change with some of those drills we were showing you there if you can do that at home. But if you look at this swing, that you move off the ball a little bit, okay? But your left foot hasn't moved off the ground quite so much, yeah? Because your hip now has generally stayed a little bit more. I mean, the club there behind you, so I didn't put that there for any reason, it just happened to be there, okay? You've moved a little bit this way, yeah? The hip is rotating, but what we want to try and see is if I put that club there, we want to create space from that club. You kind of stay there, which is better than where you were, okay? In time, that hip's going to be more over to that side, okay? So we'll have a bit more kind of movement that way as opposed to moving off the ball. That will just take practice. Like I say, you can do that at home when you're doing that drill. Put the club up there on the wall. There'll be roughly about a hand space between the club and your right hip. About here, as you swing back, create more space, yeah? So you're rotating and pivoting that hip in a way that's going to increase the space then between your right hip and that club. As I say, in this case, because your right hip did move better, the foot's in on the ground more, so you look more stable for starters, okay? Then as you come back to the golf ball, you're able to get your hip now to move towards target nicely. Really good impact position, okay? And then through to, follow through is absolutely fine if it might get a bit longer in time as your swing speed increases, but generally speaking, nothing to worry about there whatsoever, okay? So when you're hitting the golf ball, you focus on the golf ball. When you're doing your practice swings or work at home, that's when you work on how your hips are going to move. They need to be sort of rotating this way, not sliding to the right foot, and then maintaining a bit more of a kind of structure between those lines there, as opposed to where you started here before. If we sort of put some lines there, you moved them a lot, that hip should be sort of on that green line, okay? If you look at this one here now, when you swing back, you haven't moved, you're kind of in there, I suppose, yeah? Which is, again, at the moment, that's probably where I want you to be, because if you went back to where you should be over here somewhere with your left hip, you'd miss the golf ball, because you'd be so far away from where you're used to being, you'd have no clue where the club is in relation to you or the golf ball, and it'd be a disaster. So the movement has to be gradual, bit by bit over time. Okay. That makes sense?
It does make sense.
Excellent. Very, very